Jon Robertson joins us. First, some supporters to thank, and thank you for listening. This episode is supported by CCW Digital, leaders responsible for operations, information technology, contact centers, customer care, service, and support are invited to register for a free CCW Digital membership. Membership includes networking with 100,000 plus qualified industry professionals, quarterly executive research reports, product matchmaking, and more. Go to ccwdigital.com to join the community. This episode is also supported by the CCW Conference and Expo. The event will empower you to test, learn, and try the next big thing in customer experience optimization. Are you interested in mining data across touch points for personalized and predictive data? Are you trying to integrate your systems to get a more complete view of the customer? Are you figuring out what innovations to invest in? Chatbots, virtual assistants, AI, VR, biometrics, to name a few? Go to callcenterweek.com to register. Recorded at CCW, Jon Robertson joins us and shares that along the way he woke up one morning and was experiencing numbness from the waist down. After many tests and MRIs, doctors prognosticated that he might have MS. Now that we live in a connected world, it's hard to turn off, and it seems that the first thing we sacrifice is our health. We're not going to the gym as much. We squeeze in 15 minutes for lunch. In general, it's difficult to take time for yourself, and that time isn't valuable when you're checking all of your digital feeds. Jon's focus is on taking 3 to 5 minutes to get what you need to be productive for the rest of the day. Ultimately, Jon didn't have MS, but he used the opportunity to take stock in what was important, make some personal changes, start taking care of himself, and make a difference for others. Welcome to CCW Digital on B2B IQ. I'm your host, Seth Adler. Download episodes on ccwdigital.com or through our app in iTunes, within the iTunes podcast app, in Google Play, or wherever you currently get your podcasts. Jon Robertson.
You used to not find any Jons, and everyone assumes it's short for Jonathan, but Mom just wanted to be different.
I gotcha. Oh, mine. So I'm the full thing for the middle name.
Oh, okay.
So you've truncated
Jon on the birth certificate,
and that's what we're going with. Desk Yogi. What are we doing?
Well, it's an excellent question.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do is scour the globe for leading experts in the field of wellness.
Okay.
So anything having to do with mind or body, and create micro wellness moments in video that we can deliver to employees regardless of what their role is, their work environment, right at their desk. And so it's all about trying to help people have a little more sanity in their life, reduce stress, feel better, be happier.
Yeah.
So
thanks for doing that. I feel like that might be the key to this whole thing. If everybody's in a little bit of a better mood, right?
I hope so. Yeah. It seems like now that we live in a connected world, it's hard to turn off.
Indeed.
Right.
Yeah.
So you find that the first thing we sacrifice is our health.
Sure.
Right. We're not going to the gym as much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm going to get 15 minutes for lunch. Let me grab something out of the vending machine or the fast food.
Right.
And so it's even more difficult to take time for yourself. Right. You take a break. What is really a break? I'm reading my email in between meetings. Right. Trying to catch up. And so we wanted, even if it's just 3 to 5 minutes, take a break and actually get what you need to be more productive through the rest of the day.
And so I have a friend that is big into yoga, and he keeps saying, all you got to do is 12, 13 minutes in the morning, and that's all you need, right? And I'm like, well, sure, but I got to get to work. I got to do the stuff. You're saying it could be even 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, because one of the things that we show, and people like you, what do you do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
One of the first videos we show, because everybody can benefit from it, is an eye strain exercise.
Okay.
And since most people are looking at a computer the majority of the day, it's a very short, 3 to 5 minutes. Yeah. And it's simply doing things like rubbing your hands together, building heat, and cupping over your eyes. And we'll have people do that, and follow along. They go, I feel amazing.
Yeah.
Like just from that, I feel amazing. And that's what we're trying to do is just give them a way. Maybe it's back pain, right? They've been sitting wrong.
Sure.
Right? Ergonomics are not right.
Yeah.
to be able to do a simple stretch that provides that relief, now you're more productive, you're re-engaged. And so that's what it's all about, is making people be able to self-help.
I'm in. I like this. So we've got, we're in this small room, which is next to a bigger room where they're obviously, doing stuff like calling people, right? And not taking a break.
That's
Jon.
right. That's right.
So obviously it feels like you know what you're talking about. You've convinced me, who I've been very resistant to the whole thing, even though I know it's good for me. And I wonder how you came to be who you are. Where are you from?
So born and raised in California.
That makes sense, right? In what you're trading in.
Yes.
Southern California, I'm guessing.
Yep. Southern California.
Right. Where?
Just below Santa Barbara in a city called Ventura, a little sleepy beach town.
Sure.
And Desk Yogi's based in Ojai, California, which is even a smaller town that no one has heard of, nor can they spell.
With a J.
That's right.
Is the key there.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's not Ojai.
No.
But my both the founder and CEO and my business partner and I both worked at lynda.com.
Which is what, for those that don't know?
Yes. So lynda.com.
With a Y, by the way.
Yes. Lynda. So it's one of those Cinderella stories. For those that don't know, it's worth Googling because it's a pretty phenomenal story. Founded in 1995, privately funded, not kind of your traditional VC-funded tech startup, but they created a software training platform. But what they did that was different, because we've all had online training, and we all hate online training.
Well, sure.
And so what Lynda did that was so different is they found those experts in the world that maybe, 5 people knew what they knew, right? They're the people that actually worked for the software company, wrote the program. They were the ones that authored the books that you could go and buy in Barnes & Noble. And they actually brought them into a studio, did incredibly high-quality video content of those individuals. And it felt like you had access to that individual. They could pull up a chair and walk you through it.
Okay.
And it took off. Now, it didn't take off initially. From about 1995 to 2007, it struggled.
Right.
But
it was a 12-year overnight sensation.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I joined in 2007, and within, I think I was employee number 35.
Okay.
And 8 years later, LinkedIn acquired it for $1.5 billion with the B.
Sure. Yeah. Which is, pocket change compared to Whole Foods. Since we're, in that moment in time.
Yes.
When we're speaking.
But for an online training company, that was a pretty, it was hyper growth.
Yeah.
Over those 8 years.
It's a gargantuan amount of money. Come on.
It was, and it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
What they were able to do, considering I don't think they even took VC money until the year before the acquisition.
Right.
So it was all self-funded organic growth.
Call that bootstrapped.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So different if you've got, huge venture capital to really invest in growing the business. Much different when you bootstrap it. So we have now taken essentially that same DNA and have brought it to the wellness world. And we're doing exactly the same model. So it's finding that talent, bringing them into our production facility. We film it. We do all the post-production, building a library with that amazing A-list talent.
Perfect. Okay. So, but let's just make sure here. We got the Southern California bona fides, right? When were you turned on, if you will, to yoga? When did that happen for you?
So I'm actually not what I would consider a yoga expert at all.
Fine.
My business partner has been teaching yoga for only over 25 years.
Okay, so he or she?
She.
She is the expert.
She is the expert.
We understand that you're not the expert.
I am not the expert.
Even still, I want to know when your relationship with yoga began.
So it really is a personal story for me.
Yeah.
And it happened when I was at lynda.com.
Okay.
Because we were in that hyper-growth phase, you have no life.
Nope.
It is everything you can do to just keep your head above water. And so guess what? I wasn't taking care of myself.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm a former athlete. I've always been very active. I wasn't doing that. And I woke up one morning and was experiencing numbness from the waist down.
Oh, that's not good.
No. And so, kind of long story short, after a lot of tests and MRIs later, they thought that I might have MS. And so I had to go see specialists. And finally discovered that while there are some things, lesions in the brain that they can't explain, it's not MS.
Okay. Even though there's signs of that, essentially.
And they basically said, no one really goes and gets an MRI in the brain until something's wrong.
Right.
So we may all be walking around
Yeah.
with, some form of abnormal.
Who knows?
Yeah. So they said, unless you really are looking forward to brain surgery, I'd just wait and see what happens.
Okay, fair enough.
So we're doing that. But it was definitely a wake-up call.
Yeah.
So it's actually what led me to leave lynda.com. I had to just completely take stock in what was important, make some personal changes.
Sure.
And I needed to start taking care of myself, wanted to be around for my kids. And so when Jackie came to me with the idea.
This is your partner.
This is my partner. When she came to me with the idea, it spoke to me in a way that was very personal.
Yeah.
And I could immediately see how other people are probably in a similar situation, maybe have not had the scare I had.
Yeah.
But we had an opportunity to make a difference.
You had to stop and start all over again.
Yep.
How did yoga play into that?
Well, for me, it was really trying to figure out. It's not just. It's for me. It wasn't just the exercise.
Okay.
Right. There was an needing to find an inner peace, and so I've had several individuals in my life that have always told me yoga would be great.
Sure.
Right. They're always, just as you said.
Yeah, absolutely.
You should try yoga.
Yeah.
It'll change your world.
That's it.
Change your life. And I had never done it. And so it was at that point where I said, you know what? It's time to give this a try. And so I did. And I'm still kind of in that process of exploring and learning. And like I said, not an expert at all.
Sure.
But immediately saw the benefit of that.
You immediately saw the benefit. And what was the internal kind of dialogue? Was it this is nice and it's kind of a gradual improvement, or was it, oh my God, I can't believe I haven't been doing this forever?
It was more of the latter.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's been difficult for me because a lot of what is incorporated in the yoga, besides the mental benefits, is a lot of flexibility.
Okay.
I am naturally not very flexible.
Oh, that's you and me. Same thing.
And so one of the very first things I discovered is that I could not get my body into many of those poses.
Right.
And yet going through that process of trying and struggling to be able to see that improvement, and then the after effects of just how much easier it was for me to move my body.
Yeah.
Just getting up, moving around, less pain, less stiffness. And that was where it's like, okay, there might be something to this whole yoga thing.
Yeah, we're onto something.
Yeah.
Here. You say you were an old athlete. What did you play? I'm guessing soccer.
Actually, I did not do well with team sports.
Okay.
Tennis,
I'm
then? Very competitive, and so I raced bicycles.
Raced bicycles?
Yes.
So BMX?
Yes.
Okay.
Back in the heyday.
Yeah, I would imagine. And so this is like a dirt bike thing, and you're doing the jumps and that whole deal?
Yep. Traveled all over the country.
You have to be flexible to do that. How are you not? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting because if you think about the movement of a bicycle, your leg goes from about straight to 45 degrees at the most.
Right.
It's
right
really
back again.
not.
Oh yeah.
It's not that
much.
That bit much of a bend to it. It's more power and endurance, but not really a lot of flexibility.
I gotcha. You say you traveled all over the country.
All over the country, racing BMX.
For how? How was this something that, like, were you sponsored? How did it all work?
So this is where we get into the embarrassing side of the story. So most people, if you are under the age of 45, will probably not remember the television show Chips.
Oh my God. Okay. I do remember the television show Chips with Ponch and Jon.
That's right.
Yeah.
And my father, his whole career was in law enforcement.
Okay.
So
Part of the California Highway Patrol?
No,
Okay.
Sheriff's Department.
Okay.
But anything law enforcement, I was all about it.
Got it.
And so I was a huge fan of Chips as a child.
Right.
And the individual that played Jon was Larry Wilcox.
That's it.
He was also an avid motorcycle rider.
Okay. Makes sense.
And he started a clothing line after Chips.
Okay.
And then when the BMX craze started, he also created a clothing line for BMX.
Uh-huh.
Now, at the time, I was racing motorcycles, and we approached him about a sponsorship.
Okay.
And he said, I'm kind of getting out of that. It's really competitive. Have you ever raced BMX? No. Well, we're holding a race. Why don't you come and try it?
Sure.
So
Sure, Jon from Chips.
yeah. So gave me all the stuff, told me where to be on what day.
Right.
And I show up at this race, and it was unbelievable how many people were there. I'd never done it before, and this was like a big national event. All kinds of sponsored racers are there.
Right.
Everybody knows the names. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting second in my first race.
Look at that. How did you know what you, because a motorcycle, that's not the same thing.
No,
you said
but
pedaling is, only 45, but what was it? How did you know how to do it?
this was what it was like growing up in the 80s. You were on your bike 24/7.
I gotcha.
Right?
Built
Anybody,
in.
if you've watched the show Stranger Things, as kids, we lived on our bicycles.
Absolutely.
And so, because I love motorcycles, I'm always building jumps, and I rode all over town. And so, you don't have any speed, any gears.
Yeah.
It's one speed.
Yeah.
And I'd ride 15 miles and to school, and then 15 miles home on a one-speed bike.
We call that a fixie now, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
And so I knew how to ride the bike.
Yeah.
I had the endurance and the power.
Right.
And it ended up that it just took.
Second place does not sound embarrassing, Jon.
No, but now as an adult, you talk about how you were sponsored by the guy that was on Chips.
Yeah.
Not a lot of street cred there.
I don't know. I think it's cool. I'm just one guy, but I kind of like it. So how long were you going around the country doing that stuff?
About 4 or 5 years.
Okay. Do you know a guy named Gork?
No, that doesn't ring a bell.
All right. He's like a executive in BMX, but was touring, I would imagine, roughly at around the same time.
Okay.
Greg Barrett, I think, was his real name or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so you said 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years.
So 4 or 5 years. What did you learn from, right, if this is not a lot of street cred, what about the mind bred? What did you learn from, competing?
Well, my dad definitely played some mean Jedi tricks on me.
Okay.
So
he being your Darth Vader to your Luke Skywalker.
well,
right?
it was interesting because, like I said, I kind of fell into it.
Yeah.
I discovered that I was pretty good at it, and I did enjoy it, but I don't think I ever really had a sense for whether I could really be on the same level as these other, kids that were sponsored.
But you second place the first time. Why did you have that inside
It almost
of you?
felt like it's hard to explain. I because I didn't come up in that BMX culture and kind of have to earn the sponsorship.
You felt like an imposter.
A little bit.
Right.
And so, there's a big national points-based championship. You do all these different races. You earn points. You go all the way to the finals, and then you get ranked for the following year. Mm-hmm. And I remember being at the last race, and I think I was like 5th in the point standings. But you go into the last race, and every single race is triple points.
Okay.
So there's a pretty big swing. You could fall out. You could go up pretty substantially.
Right.
And I remember the night before the race, my dad said, so what are your expectations? What do you want to get out of this?
Mm-hmm.
I had never even thought about what I'd want it to get. I show up, I race, I go home.
I was just doing the thing.
Just doing the thing.
Right.
And so I thought about it, and I said, well, it'd be really cool to have a single-digit number next year.
Got it.
And he looked at me, and he kind of went, okay. Then I just have one question. Why not number 1?
Which digit? Exactly.
And I'll never forget, it was literally like the wind had been knocked out of me.
Knocked out of you? Why was this not inspirational?
It was, but at the time, it was this feeling of that realization that you had not set your sight high enough. You were selling yourself short.
Yeah.
You were compromising on what you were capable of.
Uh-huh.
And, I kind of grew up in that all-American household where my dad was my hero.
Sure.
Right? And I felt like he was almost disappointed in me.
He wasn't saying why not number 1. He's saying why hasn't it been number 1? Is that fair? Or
it was that the way that he said it communicated to me, at least I don't think he meant it this way, but the way I interpreted it was he was disappointed that I hadn't put myself in the mindset of it being possible.
Got it. Yeah.
And it just sucked the air out of the room.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have a response to that.
Yeah.
And so I went out the next day, won every single race.
Oh, you did?
And got number 1.
I was not expecting that. I'm giving you a high five. I thought you were going to be 300, so you got everything.
And because I'd come from 5th, protests were filed. They didn't think it was mathematically possible. And we were there till almost 10 o'clock at night waiting for them to figure it out.
Which was not a good anecdote for your imposter syndrome, right? You know what I mean?
No, but it was for something that was a relatively mundane kind of childhood experience, right? Like this was something that wasn't necessarily going to change my adult life and how I was going to provide for my family.
This is just for now.
But it did change the way I looked at things from there on out.
Yeah.
And I do believe it's defined who I am and why I've been able to be successful in my career.
Yeah. I think I said anecdote when I meant to say antidote, but I digress. So now is there a constant search for number 1?
Yes. That and there is no second place.
You're either first or last. I think that's Ricky Bobby, right?
It is. And second place is the first loser.
Right.
But
you're saying these things seriously. We're talking about the comedy Talladega Nights, right?
It's not to say that if I don't, that the world ends.
I gotcha.
But I always set my sights on I want to crush it.
I don't want to consider number 2. I don't want
That's
to consider it. I don't want it nowhere near my mindset.
Yeah, and we can probably quote other movies as well. Failure's not an option.
Sure.
But yes, that is the way I approach everything now. And I think that's one of the reasons I've spent a lot of my career on the sales side. Is I'm very competitive.
Yep.
And I want to see things succeed.
Yeah, and you can be ranked, which is another, helpful thing for a personality like yours.
Yes.
It's so interesting. Fathers and sons is such an interesting dynamic, right? Because I was following along with you, and it's just a strange thing because you always want to impress Dad, and you always think that you're disappointing Dad somehow. And I don't know, I can't explain it, right?
Yep.
You said you have kids?
I do.
Do you have a boy?
One boy, one girl.
Okay, and the boy's older or younger?
Boy's older.
Okay, and the girl's older or younger? I just want to make sure you're paying attention.
Younger.
Yeah.
I think I got the math right on that.
So, how did you go from BMX to Linda? Was there a stop in between, or?
Yes, there were several stops in between. So, another little interesting story. So, in high school, I decided that I'd start my own business.
Okay.
When I tell people that, most of the time they think I'm doing something out of my garage.
Sure.
That would have been the smart way to go.
Got it.
That's not what I did.
Interesting.
My best friend, who actually was one of the individuals that protested my race.
Okay.
Because we raced in the same class.
Yeah.
We knew of one another, but we were not friends.
Okay.
We became best friends after we had stopped racing.
Sure.
I was best man at his wedding. He was best man at my wedding. So, interesting story from the standpoint of we become good friends in high school.
Yeah.
Because you walk into a new high school, you don't know anyone.
Right.
I know you.
Yeah. That guy.
Yeah.
We're buddies now.
So we're buddies now. So we, in our junior year of high school, we started a window tinting business.
Okay. For cars?
Cars, homes,
wow,
and commercial buildings.
Okay.
And we rented a 1,800 square foot industrial building.
Oh, Jesus.
And put up shop.
Sure.
Now, I was on a work experience program where I got out early to go work.
Fine.
I had to have my employee pretend to be my boss and grade me for my work experience program because the high school didn't know I owned my own business.
Because they couldn't.
So, did that.
Yeah.
That's where I got my first kind of taste of sales.
Okay.
And ended up selling the business.
Okay.
And used the money to go to college.
Wait a second. The way that you tell anecdotes is very interesting because we're all set up for this epic failure. And you're like, and then I sold the business, which gave me enough money that I could go to school. Like, what? It would have been easier to do it in the garage, but it turns out you did it the right way.
Well, so a tent company's bread and butter are car dealerships.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But the car dealerships that are going to pay that are going to be your Mercedes, Porsche, your more affluent brands.
Folks that can afford it.
That's right. So being all of 16, imagine going to the Porsche dealership and saying, give me the keys and I'll bring it back in a couple of hours.
Sure, yeah. I'll just tint the windows here. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
We couldn't get the time of day. Not surprising. So we also didn't have the money to hire trained, experienced sales professionals.
Yeah.
So I had to go to the library, read as many sales books as I can, hire whoever I could afford, train them tinting lingo, pricing, and sales.
Yeah.
They would then go to the dealership, get the deal, and we'd tint the windows.
Sure. And so you come in as the young schlock.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I had all of these adults that I had trained to go out and do business development for me.
Yeah.
And then we were the ones actually doing the tinting. We would take, our classmates that wanted their windows tinted but couldn't afford it. We'd give them a stack of flyers with their initials on it.
Get out there.
And if they got 10 flyers redeemed, we'd tint their windows for free.
Sure.
So it was guerrilla marketing.
Yeah.
And it took off. And we prided ourselves on doing amazing work where our goal was if you can look at the window and tell that it had been tinted, we failed.
Gotcha.
So we wanted it to look like the glass came that way.
Okay. So explain to me, John, how you're in high school and you say to yourself and your buddy, okay, we're just going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to learn everything that I need to learn. I'm going to learn everything that I need to learn. I'm going to hire whoever will say yes. And this is going to be a success. I mean, I guess young guys have cojones. Is that one of the answers?
Well, and we were so naive.
You had cojones coming out because you didn't even know what possibly could go wrong.
That's right.
Yeah. So you sell the business. Why did you make the decision to sell the business?
I had the promise that I made to my parents when I went to them and said, hey, I've decided I'm going to start my own business.
Right.
Is that I would still go to college.
Okay.
And so I said, look, I'm going to do this for 2 years, if it even lasts 2 years. And then when I graduate high school, I am committing to go to college. And so that was always the deal. And we looked at it as, hey, we're trying to make a couple extra bucks for the weekend, and why not work for ourselves?
Yeah.
And not have to answer to anyone, and we can kind of, call our own shots. Like, this sounds great. Why doesn't everybody do this?
Why doesn't everybody do this?
And
because it can go horribly wrong, John. That's why.
And it can be an utter failure, and you can lose every cent you put into it.
There you go.
But, again, we didn't know any better. So for us, it was a more fun way to earn a little bit of extra money, and it actually ended up becoming a real business in the process.
So you sell it, go to ASU.
No, actually, I went to California State University, Chico.
Okay, so you sell it. And then where did you go?
California State University, Chico.
So everyone knows California State University, Chico. No.
No, so it's in the California State school system.
Sure.
Right before I went, literally the year before I went, it was ranked number 1 on Playboy's list of party schools.
There you go.
That is not why I chose it.
Oh, it isn't?
It is actually not. I didn't even know it was on the list at the time.
Gotcha.
But it was known for that because of something called Pioneer Days, which was like essentially the equivalent of Mardi Gras.
Gotcha.
And then it went horribly wrong one year. They outlawed Pioneer Days, and off the list we went. But the reason I selected it is in a beautiful part of Northern California. Tons of outdoor, hiking, biking, which is what I wanted to do. And it has the lowest cost of living in the state school system. And so the best teachers want to go there for quality of life.
Sure.
And they can make their dollar stretch further. And so the teaching was actually incredibly good. And since then, it's now one of the top ranked schools in the system.
Interesting. And not for partying.
And not for partying.
For actual academics.
So, interesting that they've completely gone the other way now.
Yeah. What'd you study?
Economics.
Okay. And you came out, and who was kind enough to say, John, you can have a job?
Well, I started with a company called New Horizons Computer Learning Centers.
Okay.
And they essentially had classrooms, and they would sell to businesses, and businesses would send their employees to learn how to use software, Microsoft Word, Excel, that type of thing.
Sounds like a first iteration of Linda.
In a lot of ways, yes.
Yeah.
Now, while I was in school, I was a double major, economics and computer science.
Okay.
I wanted to teach. That was kind of where I was headed. I ultimately had to make the decision to drop the computer science major because I needed to graduate quickly. And so I finished with the economics, but I did have this itch to teach. And I love computers. And so my mom sent me, this is back when you actually had newspaper ads that you'd look at for jobs.
Yeah.
She sent me a cutout, and it says, "Can you teach? Do you love computers?"
Huh.
That's me.
Yes and yes.
So I actually started teaching computer software. And it was a pretty incredible experience because they would hand you a software that you'd never used before. And they say, you teach it next week.
Yeah, figure it out, teach it next week.
So you had 1 week to figure it out and be the smartest one in the room.
Right, which plays right into your personality. I'm going to be number 1 at this, in the room.
Yes, which I put an immense amount of pressure on myself.
Of course.
And it was very grueling. But the CEO at the time came to me and said, I'm looking at your resume, and I see that you owned your own business and you've done some sales. You're a great teacher. What do you think about hiring and training all of our sales folks? And so that was where I kind of moved from front of the house to back of the house.
Right.
And I started doing all of the hiring and training, and then eventually from there ran all of sales and marketing for a few locations, and they sold the company.
Okay. And then when did you pick up with Linda?
So from there I went to a medical device manufacturer, almost did the exact same thing. Built a sales team, company sold, and the head of HR at that company went to Linda,
Yeah.
and the rest, as they say, is history.
What's the key? And I'm asking Jon from high school, and I'm also asking Jon, who's done this now a few times, in building a sales team.
Hire right the first time.
Yeah.
When I first started and I kind of had to execute somebody else's system, 60 to 70% wouldn't make it past 9 months.
Right.
And so you're hiring every single month, and that's why they literally paid me to do nothing but hire and train.
Right.
And I went, this is ridiculous. Like, costs a fortune, frustrating for me, cleaning out a cubicle, putting another body in,
Right.
it vacates.
Yeah.
Said, how about we hire the right people
Yeah.
that will stay? What a novel
Yeah,
concept.
novel concept, exactly.
And then part of it was rather than being what I would call kind of the stereotypical sales manager where you're just managing activity and it's that what have you done for me lately?
Right. Tell me what's out. Tell me what you think is coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really subscribe to the coach mentality.
Got it.
And not the Bobby Knight coaching mentality
Of throwing chairs.
but investing in making a salesperson successful. Right. So hiring somebody who wants to succeed, that is a good cultural fit, believes in what you're doing, and then investing the time and effort to ensure that they succeed. And so as I started to do that, the New Horizons, when I joined, was out of 325 locations, they were in this particular location that I was at was in the bottom 10 least profitable locations.
Okay, great. They were terrible at what they do.
1 year later, we were in the top 10 most profitable.
There we go.
And it wasn't necessarily that I or anyone else did anything that was amazing.
You just found the right people.
Just found the right people and supported them and helped them.
I love it. I've got 3 final questions for you. I'll tell you what they are, and then I'll ask you them in order. What has most surprised you at work along the way? What's most surprised you in life? And then on the soundtrack of your life, Jon Robertson, one track, one song that's got to be on there. First things first, though. What has most surprised you at work?
I think what has surprised to me most is how hard it is to consistently bring your A game.
How hard it is to consistently. You just got to be on a lot.
And I think partly it's because I've happened to end up at high growth businesses. And so keeping up with that is exhausting. I have yet to work at what I call quality of life company.
Yeah.
Right? They're all high growth.
Yeah.
As soon as you find that you've achieved something, they move the line.
Sure.
Right? It's that type of thing.
But also, I mean, I'm learning who you are. That you love it. You know what I'm saying?
I would get bored very quickly otherwise.
Exactly.
So it's a love-hate.
What's most surprised you in life?
That as much as I've tried to plan a path, life is full of surprises, and it takes odd turns along the way. And I never would have guessed that I would have taken the path that I have, and I've made a lot of decisions that I am thankful for, and there are a lot of decisions that maybe on paper didn't pan out. Mm-hmm. You could argue they weren't good decisions.
Sure.
But I think what is most surprising is as I look back on all of that, I wouldn't change a one.
There you go. Because you learn from the bad decisions, right? The good decisions are helpful.
Yep.
So I'll just keep what I've already done, as opposed to would I change it? Nah. I'll just be here today, right?
That's right.
On the soundtrack of your life, one track, one song that's got to be on there.
Boy, that's a good question. As I think about it, I'm like, do I go with a song I really like? Do I go with a song that describes who I am as a person? How do I interpret that question? I think I'm going to have to go with the Eagles Hotel California.
Interesting. Is it because you can check out, but you can never leave?
So legend has it that song is actually written about Camarillo State Hospital, which is about 15 minutes from where I live.
Huh.
So there's always been kind of a connection to that song. But being born and raised in California and having traveled certainly all over the country and to some degree internationally, I am, in every sense of the word, a Californian.
Yeah.
And there have been many road trips with that song playing through the radio. And it just always brings me kind of an inner return back to that, adolescent road trip.
Sure. It's home.
It is, yeah.
Literally
it's
have
Americana
a home.
for me.
You literally have a home in Hotel California. Jon Robertson, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And there you have Jon Robertson. I went out the next day, won every single race, and got number 1. And I always set my sights on I want to crush it. Very much appreciate Jon's time. Very much appreciate yours. Stay tuned.